so windows were eliminated entirely. But windows were installed in the glass wall of the bedroom on the floor below, as this room is not air-conditioned. In lieu of a backyard, a sun deck was erected over Mr. Leskouse's office. The bedroom faces north, but its wall has been curved to catch the morning sun. Note how the glass wall gives light and privacy. And remember that all this was evolved from a shabby brown stone house. The living room occupies the entire top floor. It is the quietest and sunniest room in the house and is partly lighted by a round skylight in the ceiling. A modern home and a convenient office.
Welcome to Did You Know, the ESCO HVAC Show. We will see you in about 45 seconds or so. Make sure that you are subscribing to our channels, our LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. Turn on notifications, and we are very excited to be here with you. It's almost time, about 30 more seconds. Make sure to grab your notebook and pen so you can jot down notes along the way, because at the end of the show, you could have an opportunity to ask our guests questions so we can dive a little deeper into these topics. And here we go. Welcome to Did You Know, the ESCO HVAC Show. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining Did You Know, the ESCO HVAC Show. You know, there was a time not too many years ago where a couple guys could be standing next to each other and the topic of conversation was, so how much horsepower is in that car? And then another decade or so later, it was, how efficient is that car? And as we have been talking about changes in the industry and changes in the acceptance of what standards are for our living, we've been spending a lot of time talking about cold climate heat pump technologies, energy efficiency equipment and appliances. And we haven't spent a lot of time talking about the structures, although we've spent a little bit of time talking about the envelope of the home, in re-looking at the envelope of a structure to have a better idea of how we can serve that home and the homeowners better. So if we think about the technology that has changed, it's really moved our industry into a slightly different realm than just being HVAC contractors. And if we're building our HVAC programs, we have new opportunities to teach our students about things that they can do outside of just the installation and just the service perspective of HVAC. We are now moving into places where we can start evaluating homes, and we have new jobs and new roles that are coming out of that allows us to be more of a home energy analyzer. So today we've got some good friends of the industry, Ryan Mears and Bill Spohn, and we're going to spend some time talking about how that has changed and how important it is to analyze a structure, both existing and those that we are constructing, to look at the performance of the home. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today, and we're grateful to have you here speaking on behalf of the energy efficient side of our industry.
Hey, happy to be here, Cliff.
Yep. So, Ryan, you and I have just got to know each other a little bit here in the last couple of weeks. Bill and I have had the chance to hang out and talk about changes in the world, and I've spent a lot of time following the construction and the new lifestyle of living in a net zero home. And both of these gentlemen have some perspectives that you really need to hear about where our industry is going and opportunities that are in those industries. So, Ryan, let's talk a little bit about what's happening over at ResNet. How was ResNet founded, and what is the scenario that we're looking at with home energy raters?
Yeah, so a little history on ResNet was actually founded as by the mortgage industry.
Sure.
Way back in the 80s. Since then, it has evolved and has its origins in the state energy offices, which also helped to kind of get it off the ground. But So ResNet is now a standards development organization. So
Yeah.
we write a number of standards related to energy efficiency, water efficiency, carbon, and then eventually we expect embodied carbon actually to become another component of that. And then we also write the standards for certification of home energy rating professionals, or HERS raters, as well as rating field inspectors. And we write the standards that for quality assurance to oversee those ratings. So at ResNet, we do oversee the home energy rating industry and provide quality assurance on those ratings. And they get submitted to us at ResNet, all HERS ratings that are done across the U.S.
Okay, and so for those that are joining us that don't really understand what we're talking about by a home energy analysis and home energy rating in particular, tell us a little bit about what we're doing here.
Yeah, so a home energy rater or HERS rater will go in. So a HERS rating applies to both new homes and existing homes, and the HERS index scale is typically going to be 0 to 100, whereas 0 would be a net zero energy home, a home that produces as much energy as it uses on an annual basis.
Sure.
But certainly, many older homes, they may score in the 200s. That wouldn't be uncommon, meaning it's using a lot more energy than the reference home, which would score 100. So a HERS rater will go into a home for a new construction. They're going to go in at the pre-drywall phase, right before the drywall is installed. They're going to look at the insulation installation and air sealing. Then they'll come back at the final. They'll do a duct leakage test, a building envelope leakage test. They'll
Sure.
ventilation, and then do a one final inspection of the home to every all the information they gather gets entered into an energy modeling software to compute the energy use and the HERS index score.
Okay, so we're using a lot of inputs to calculate an output, a rating for that. Now, we've had some members of the efficiency side of the industry on talking about like blower door testing and looking at, different applications of equipment. So how many different components are we talking about? And for those that are joining us and wondering why in the heck are we talking about rating systems for homes? Well, we're going to dive into some of the resources and some of the rebates that will probably be coming through. Well, they're going to come through. We just don't know exactly when and how we can apply for those rebates, but a lot of that is going to be based on the efficiencies that we have on systems, on homes, and improving those numbers. So, yeah, what all aspects go into looking at a home for its efficiency rating, Ryan?
Yeah, so there's a lot of components to kind of to give a little example. So when a HERS rating gets submitted to ResNet, it includes the input file, an XML file of
Sure.
all the inputs. So we have for a typical rating somewhere between 500 and 700 data fields.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So there's a lot of a lot of items that go into that. So some of the big things: how much insulation? What's the insulation R value for your walls and your floors and your ceiling?
Sure.
What kind of windows did you install? What's the efficiency for your mechanical equipment, your air conditioner, your furnace, your hot water heater? Are you using heat recovery? What kind of ventilation system's been installed, and then appliances get included within that. And then air sealing is a really important component.
Oh,
A
boy.
leaky
Yeah.
home, it uses a lot more energy.
It's
And
crazy
also
how much
leaky
energy could be
ducts.
wasted.
Leaky
Yeah.
ducts are very important as well. So
Well, that's good because now we're talking about different avenues in the HVAC industry. Because I've had a lot of technicians ask, what do I do if I get into a place, say I'm an installer and I get stuck at that plateau? What else do I do? And, I always preach you can do just about anything you want in the industry. Find the things that you enjoy doing and then look for the other avenues within. So we've seen a lot of companies developing, independent specialty niches in the industry, duct sealing, blower door testing, looking at heat loss and heat gain of structures, with cameras and, diving into efficiencies individually. So now we're talking about adding all these together, getting a number, getting a value so that we can focus on the things that need to be improved in those scenarios. Now, this is what intrigued me the most when we were having our conversations the other day. is how much this has been on the rise in the last couple of years and the opportunities that it's creating in the industry. Because it's not new. Just like our little video we were watching at the beginning of the show, that was a 1937 home energy video talking about things that were being done in 1937 to make a building a little bit more efficient by, utilizing space for lighting, absorbing heat. And Bill can really dive into this hopefully here in a little bit, talking about how to utilize natural heating during the winter and using natural lighting. And if we look at the homes that are taking advantage of this today versus what it was a decade or so, huge difference. Because even here at HVAC Excellence and ESCO Institute, we dove into the home energy auditing process back around 2010, had an 800-hour program, put a bunch of time into developing it, and the industry just went, well, what do I need to do that for? I'm still selling just as many furnaces and installing as many air conditioners as I used to. Are you talking about those new high efficiency furnaces and those new 13 SEER air conditioners? Well, no, it's about the envelope of the home. And so it's taken a long time for here in America. Now, this is a standard in many places in the world to be able to look at a structure and the efficiency of a structure. Here in the US, our resources have been abundant. Therefore, the cost of our resources have been fairly low. That has been changing, and it's probably going to continue to change. So we're not talking about a small part of the market that is looking at ways to improve the efficiency of a structure. It's starting to hit the wallet. And people are looking at that going, okay, maybe it is time to invest in making my home better. What do I need to do? This is what gets me. Tell me about the numbers that you guys have seen in these last few years.
Yeah, so ResNet has been, essentially the HERS ratings have been done since the late 90s.
Yeah.
Very, very slow kind of uptake initially.
Yep.
But we have seen year over year increases now for a decade. Actually, I was just working on our 2022 annual report that'll go over all of our HERS rating data for last year. And it is. We had about an 8% increase last year.
Nice.
And now annually we're doing more than double the number of HERS ratings we did 10 years ago.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
3.6 million homes. So then you have people going, well, why haven't I heard about this? How can I take advantage of looking at my structure and becoming more aware of what I can do? So I really appreciate what's happening in our industry. I myself am a big fan of understanding your envelope. And being able to, especially if I'm in the residential sector and I'm looking at equipment and I'm quoting out replacement equipment, if I take the moment to look at do an analysis of a structure, I may be able to significantly reduce the equipment sizing, because that's been a lot of concerns for people as we're looking at things like cold climate heat pump technologies that may not produce as much heat as what we're hoping in our load calculation. A lot of times if we look at our load calculations, we can look back at the structure and go, okay, you know what? We have equipment that will fit this application if we do this, or if we do this, or if we do this. And by the way, the Inflation Reduction Act is now hoping that you're going to take advantage of this and utilize funds to look at that as an investment, an opportunity to increase the performance of your home and decrease the system sizing for our structure. How do we reduce the utilities on a structure? We make the structure more efficient. So yes, we can buy more efficient equipment, but we can only make them so much efficient. We have modulating gas furnaces now that are in the low 98s. 98.2, 98.3% efficient, very efficient gas-fired appliances. We have air conditioning products that are in the high 20 SEERs. We have places like Japan that's looking at putting a minimum 20.5 SEER expectation on new equipment. So we have the capabilities of producing a high efficiency equipment. Well, why don't we just reduce the amount of energy needed for each structure? And that's what we're focusing on today. And a lot of people, 3.67 million people, that's a lot of opportunities for homes to reduce their energy consumption and the amount of usage of our natural resources. We've seen significant increases in energy costs. Anybody seen their electric bills go up in the last couple months?
Not me.
Bill might not. He might have seen some profit sharing going up from things. So here in the U.S., we're all starting to see some increases in utility cost across the nation, and a lot of people don't realize utility costs are not consistent across America. They vary by region. They vary by times of year. We've seen things happening in like the EU where energy costs are skyrocketing. So what can we do? Well, we can look at our structures, both existing and new, and we can start adding in some high value analysis. So tell me a little bit about the interaction that we had here at Bill's home. And did we use these tools in construction along the way?
This is the longest I've been quiet. Brian knows that too, because I have him on his Res Talk podcast a lot.
Absolutely.
And Cliff, you've been on the Building HVAC Science and True Talk podcast a lot. So thank you for bringing me on. I assume everybody here knows me, but I'll just give a little bit of background. I'm an engineer, and I apologize for that first. I love data. I used to have a bumper sticker on my car that said, "I love spreadsheets," with a little heart on it. I'm a co-owner of True Tech Tools. Worked in the industry for a while, have some patents on different measurement products, just fell in love with HVAC and building performance around 1988. So I've been doing this for a very long time.
You've
and
seen
this
it
all kind of merges to why we built this home. It was our first and last home we'd ever build, hopefully. And decided to really use everything and sort of walk the talk that I've been talking about for so long. So this is a picture of it after it's been set. And that's a different kind of thing because this was actually a volumetric modular home.
Sure.
It was built in big boxes.
Yep. Pre-constructed.
80 miles away.
Yep.
And then trucked to site and then dropped in place with a crane and then finished on site.
Nice.
So we tried to employ, a lot of different principles, looked at the passive house concept, which will get you to negative HERS scores, right, Ryan?
Yep, sure will. Yep.
So and we didn't go that far that direction because it wasn't in our budget. So like something, could be dreamed for us but wasn't accomplishable.
Right.
To be accomplished. So we went with the direction of many passive house principles were employed in the construction of the house.
So was there a ResNet done on this? Is there a final number?
No, I didn't. And I've talked with Ryan about this before. It's sort of like, I think the HERS rating is important to express the value in a succinct way to a consumer.
Absolutely.
But I'm a detail guy.
Yep.
My nickname is Overkill Bill. So I was already really intimate from day one with all the details.
Sure.
I mean, I could get it for sort of like just a check-in. I did get a pro rating, which some people maybe will have pro certification. And I got a platinum level pro rating. And that was something done after the fact. However, the ResNet, the HERS rating, a lot of it needs to be done during construction. Yeah. And because it was built in a factory, then assembled on site, that's a little bit difficult too. I don't think it's not that it's not allowed, but it'd be a difficult process to accomplish within the current parameters.
Yeah. And I can see where so much of this developed out of the demand of the real estate agent. If I'm a real estate agent and I was selling, let's just say, for instance, someday Bill Spone decides to build Spone Home 2, right? Then you have an opportunity to look at a structure and go, okay, how efficient is this? Because when I market this, I might have 20 different homes that I'm wanting to show. And maybe they have different locations and they have different views. But what if I have the prospective buyer that wants efficient homes and wants to invest in reducing their own carbon footprint on our planet, which is really a significant goal of all of this, is to reduce our carbon footprint. Now we can look at homes and go, you know what, honey, I know that you love the Cape Cod on the lake, but do you know that this home runs on half as much energy and has twice as much square footage? And then they might go, okay, now we're getting somewhere. How did you compare that home to the other homes? Right. This is how you do that.
That's the yardstick. Exactly.
That's exactly
and
right.
Just just to throw some numbers out there, brag a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's 4,000 square feet conditioned, about
Yeah.
3,000 above grade, about 1,000 below grade.
Mm-hmm.
It runs on a 2-ton air source heat pump
Oh,
for heating
wow.
and cooling.
Yep.
And we have solar panels on the house.
Yep.
That's not on the house, but in the yard.
In the yard. Yep.
And the solar panel bank there creates, and it's totally electric. Everything in the property is electric. There's no gas at all except the grill in the car for now. Our total electric bills in 2021 were $154.
Oh my goodness.
And this is climate zone 5.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, you're colder
Zero,
than I am.
sub-zero, a few days a year. So
absolutely.
Design temp is 9 degrees Fahrenheit, that kind of thing.
Sure.
So it was putting together, like you started to talk about really the concept you were revolving around with house as a system.
Yes.
And how these things all go together. And that's what the HERS rating process does, is it extracts those details and makes sure everything plays together in house as a system. And that's what we paid attention to as we came up with the design for this.
Yeah. And those are such key components, because if you do it wrong, there are results.
Yes.
We've been experimenting with many of these philosophies, for decades. And until recently, we didn't have as high a quality of measuring tools. We talked about the measuring stick. It's just like having 2 kids and you call one the bad kid. Well, what's the comparison here? You have to have a standard before we can set an expectation. So we've had a lot of homes that have been built. I share an experience that a good friend of mine had. He built a similar size. Honestly, it's kind of an interesting. So he had, like 2,800 square foot above grade. I think he had a little bit less. He didn't have a full basement geothermal system, 6-inch walls, encapsulated the entire structure, triple E windows. He, went about it with the most advanced technologies he could, not understanding the complete design of the system. And he was in the home for like 6 weeks. And he calls me and he says, "Cliff, I've got a problem." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Okay, I don't know how to say this." I was like, "Well, just get it out." He said, "No, I need to be professional about this." He said, "I can't fart in my own home." I said, "Oh, did you have a couple things pop up that you didn't expect in all of this construction effort?" He says, "I thought if you just built the home as thick as you could and as insulated as you could, you'd have an efficient home and it'd be a comfortable home." Well, that's what we're getting into.
Yep.
The expectations of doing these practices and understanding how that you have that indoor environment. We've talked about indoor air quality before, but how often we talk about that indoor air environment?
Yeah.
Being able to comfortable.
Yeah, that plays into, beyond just hitting you in the wall, it hits you in the comfort, in the feel.
Absolutely.
And it hits you in health too.
Yes.
So all these things are like maybe one is a surrogate for the other, but usually when you do kind of reduce the energy amount that you need, you have the potential to improve comfort. Because you have more control. And I like to say an HVAC system creates expensive air.
Yes.
And you need to do a good job controlling and containing that expensive air, but also remember people are in the structure and use some kind of ventilation scheme to bring in air. And in our case, we use a conditioning ERV.
Yep, absolutely.
That's made in Illinois, served by Build Equinox. And it actually has sensors in it. And I have my sensors set so when the average house CO2 level goes above 800 parts per million, it runs through a heat exchanger. So it brings in, like right now it's cold. Yeah. It'll bring in cold outdoor air, but run the exhaust air over a heat
plate
pump.
Exchanger. Yeah.
No, it's actually a heat pump. There's a third of a ton heat pump in there.
Okay.
So it actually uses a heat pump to exchange the heat a little bit more efficiently than just a heat exchanger. So that's the way we achieve, continually fresh air, and I can fart to my heart's content.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a very important part of these homes, which is, how we start looking at things like HERS ratings. If someone invests, let's say someone is remodeling a home and they decide, hey, I'm going to put the best windows and doors I can put on this thing, and they invest $50,000 in windows and doors. Is the home worth $50,000 on return when they do a HERS rating and find out, well, you really didn't change the structure any? Mm-hmm. You might have reduced some of the comfort around the windows, but the total atmosphere hasn't been changed. So a variety of aspects going into that comfort, our creature comfort. Huge examples. Bill, how can we learn more about the house and the efforts along the way? Because I believe there's going to be a lot of people watching this going, hey, I'd like to learn a little bit more about this.
So I have a blog that's at the web address SponeHome, spelled just that way.com. And I picked that name because the home part everybody can pronounce, but most people can't pronounce my last name. So it's the long O in both, SponeHome.com. And then there's also a Facebook group. So if you're on Facebook, just search for SponeHome. Just answer a couple questions. I'll let you in. It's a private group, but there's around 700 people in it. And I just share more frequently in the SponeHome group than I do on the blog. But the blog's got some of the archive materials, like some TV interviews, some radio interviews, different things, the publications, things like that. And Jason's shooting out comments here in the live stream chat. I can see good comments. 3 air changes per hour, probably at test pressure, like 50 pascals, like a blower door test, or less. Must have ventilation. We're at 1.1. Passive house is 0.6. So again, one of those things where we didn't get it all the way down.
Couldn't be completely down, but yeah. So when we talk about the construction of the home, when did you start construction on this, Bill?
Actually, we started design in 2018, and construction was done in 1 month in the factory.
Oh, wow.
So it was October of 2019 that they actually did the construction. And then the house was wrapped up and brought to the site in January of 2020. And then it was set on a foundation. You can't quite tell from there, but those are also precast foundation panels.
Yes.
So it was a factory-made foundation, too, that was placed in there. And then set on site. And it was right in the middle of COVID. So there were governor's orders to shut down construction and all kinds of things going on. So it slowed our, from this house setting day was in January. We didn't move in until November 16th, 2020.
Okay.
So when did we start construction? It's hard to say because it's
exactly. It's in that window. So part of the reason I'm asking that is when we're talking about incentives for building efficient homes, right? So say we're looking at construction and we're wanting to utilize, a ResNet analysis of a home, or we're wanting to make sure that we're constructing as high a quality a home as possible, but yet taking advantage of incentives that are available to do that. When you were building your home, what kind of incentives were available at that time?
Well, we were in a territory with a utility who did not have a new home construction incentive. Okay. Every other utility around us, electrical utility did. Right. Our utility did not. Okay. So we were not able to use that. We did make our builder aware because they weren't aware of the 45L, which is something that ResNet lobbies heavily for, where the builder can actually get a tax credit for building energy efficient homes that do get rated. So they'd have to go through a step of rating this home, but that could have been done. That didn't happen. I think I got some energy efficient appliance rebates, gift cards, basically from the utility for buying energy efficient, smart thermostat, Energy Star fridge, that kind of thing. Aside from that, no, there wasn't much available back in 2020.
That is how much our industry has changed in a short period of time. And that's why I wanted to do this session with you guys, because you are right in the middle of seeing this transition, seeing how much of an effort we have from our federal government to motivate people to look at their homes, to measure their homes. If it's an existing home, we're going to measure a home to see how efficient it is, see where the weaknesses are. And we are going to see a variety of different incentives for doing upgrades to homes, not just on the heating and the ventilation systems. We have other things coming through. So we'll talk about those more. We had a discussion here a few weeks ago with PNNL, Pacific Northwest National Laboratories, representing DOE, and the incentives that are going to be coming through and some that are there now. But we have this one, which the reason we dove into this is we had people following up from that show going, I need to know more about 45L because I've not heard of it and I need to know more. And I've had other people going, well, when is that coming out and what does it actually do? So let's look at 45L a little bit and see what that can offer for the industry. Ryan, this might be on your side of things.
Yeah, so the 45L home builder tax credit has been around for a while. Typically, it gets renewed, often retroactively, by Congress because they're slow to act. But um, just last year, 45L was renewed, and it was also the legislation was renewed for a 10-year period,
That's right, extended.
which is really unheard of in terms of the 45L tax credit. So that's really good news, and one of the good things is that it provides stability. Builders that often went for 45L tax credits. They would know 1 year they could get the tax credit. Well, the following year, if Congress
May or
didn't
may not.
renew that legislation, they may not be eligible for
That's
it.
exactly right.
So there was a lot of uncertainty around it. But this 10-year extension really provides a lot of certainty for builders to know that it's going to be around. But it is a little bit different than it used to be in that
Hmm.
up until January 1st of this year, builders, the 45L tax credit was actually based on heating and cooling loads.
Yeah, exactly.
So you had to reduce your heating and cooling loads by 50% compared to a 2006 baseline. Well, starting January 1st, that has changed now to Energy Star certification. So homes have to meet the Energy Star, have to get Energy Star certified in order to obtain the tax credit going forward, or they can obtain the Zero Energy Ready certification, and that's a $5,000 tax credit. The Energy Star certification is a $2,500 tax credit.
Okay.
So yeah, that's essentially how the new 45L works.
So is that for new construction only?
It is. It's for new construction,
Okay.
and that's a tax credit that goes to the builder. It does not go to the homeowner.
Okay.
And the home does have to be the home essentially has to be sold or rented or leased during that year for them to get the tax credit.
Okay. So quite a few changes with that. And does that, when we look at how that applies, is that a one-time per construction?
It is. Yeah, it's a one-time tax credit. Yep.
Okay. So if we're looking at manufacturing or buying a home, this is an opportunity to dive into that. Do we see it being utilized much in new construction of larger contractors? How often is the 45L getting utilized?
Yeah, so it's hard to say because there's no real solid data on it, at least previously. So going forward with Energy Star, we will know how many homes achieve the Energy Star certification and
Right.
are eligible for the tax credit. But previously, there was no central database of how many homes qualified or applied for the 45L. But it's so Energy Star is in the neighborhood of about 100,000 homes a year.
Yep.
We're seeing more builders that are doing HERS ratings that are not doing Energy Star move toward Energy Star, trying to figure out what do they need to do
How
to
to
reach
utilize
Energy
that.
Star so they
Sure.
can get the tax credit. Builders that are maybe already doing Energy Star looking toward the DOE Zero Energy Ready Home program so they can get the $5,000 tax credit and seeing what that will take. But going forward, we'll have a better idea of how many builders have achieved Energy Star and are eligible for the tax credit.
Now the IRA funds are a little different, and we're still learning. At least I'm learning a lot about distribution of the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, because there is a lot of funds that are going to be coming available. Some of that are already here. Some of them, like the 45L program, that's been reinitiated from that. Is this something that is available in every state?
Yeah, it is a federal tax credit, so
Okay.
it is the 45L is available in every state. And it's essentially a reduction in what builders will owe on their annual taxes.
Yeah, I mean, if I think about that, if I'm a builder and I'm looking to reduce my tax consumption bill, man, there's a big opportunity. Now, it does take a lot to be able to get into those parameters, but if we're focusing on building homes that are energy efficient, then it's an extra incentive for doing that. Or if I'm an HVAC contractor and I'm wanting to work with, construction companies that are focusing on energy efficient products, this is a great place to align because we have a lot of homeowners that are looking for our Energy Star rated homes and energy efficient homes. And that is going to continue to grow because when we look at our younger generations, our generation that are purchasing homes now are tenfold more aware of rising energy cost and our green impact. And this is a good thing to look at for our rebates. Awesome. All right. Well, that kind of clarifies some of that. Tells us a little bit about our ZERH program, the Zero Energy Ready Home. Anything we want to dive into on that as far as specifications?
It's a little bit. It takes a little bit more to get there than for Energy Star, and that was kind of
Right.
the purpose of the program. Um, but it's still, typically you can get to a zero energy ready home with a HERS score in the upper 40s to even mid
Okay.
50s, depending on
Right.
your climate zone.
Okay.
So, essentially how efficient can you make the home before you have to add renewable energies in the form of solar, typically, to get down to a HERS score around zero.
Okay. And that makes sense because I've seen some new construction requirements. If we look at like Orange County, California, now even on new construction there, they're requiring solar panels on new constructions.
Yeah.
So, applications for these 45Ls are really coming into play in different regions just to be able to hit those. And that brings up a good point because I didn't realize that it was based on climate zones. Because, it makes sense. If we're focusing on areas that use more energy, we need to, be at a different standing point than places that are already relatively energy efficient.
Yeah, and so I'm more on the climate zone thing. It's easier to get a HERS score in the 30s in the northern climates without any solar compared to in the southern climates where you're more likely to get down into the 40s just using efficiency alone
Sure.
before adding solar.
Okay. Fantastic. All right. Well, that was the main ones that I had on 45L. We had some questions on those. We had people who want to know what is the eligibility requirements for that. Have to be limited to 5 stories or fewer. So is this utilized in any kind of multifamily or commercial?
It does, yeah. 45L does apply to multifamily as well, to individual dwelling units. It's a $500 tax credit, and there are some requirements for the use of essentially union labor,
Labor. Okay.
or meeting the I'm drawing a blank on the term, but
Prevailing wage.
yeah,
Prevailing wage. Yep.
prevailing wage requirements, yeah, for multifamily. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Well, that was the main ones that I had on diving into 45L. It answers all the questions that we had for that. So let's spend a little bit more time talking about the future of ResNet and how it's going to impact our industry. What technicians are we looking for that?
Yeah, so I mean, ResNet has a couple of different certifications. One of them is going to be your HERS Rater certification. That was kind of the original.
Yep.
So a HERS Rater can do all the on-site inspections and testing, and also energy modeling, which can include various different calculations for load calcs and things like that. But then we have a newer certification, a few years old now, called a rating field inspector, and
Okay.
that is a certification that basically covers everything a HERS rater does except the energy modeling. So the field inspector does the pre-drywall inspection. They
Yep.
can do all of the testing, duct leakage, envelope leakage, ventilation testing on site. Um, and so a lot of the larger companies will use rating field inspectors to do all their field work, and then HERS raters. We also have our HERS modeler certification, which is essentially a specialization from a HERS rater that just does the modeling component of it. But HERS raters are always working very closely with builders and HVAC technicians, especially on commissioning.
Yep.
And there's commissioning type requirements on Energy Star, and ResNet also has standard 310 that was developed, which is essentially a HVAC commissioning standard.
So are you starting to see any jurisdictions that are requiring ResNet validation on them? Because like when we talk about like blower door validations, we've seen places like Florida that are starting to have requirements on blower door testing because now we have municipalities and when we have, our energy suppliers looking at construction going, if we set some expectations, we can control energy consumption. And I see this as as a avenue for doing that.
Yeah, well, so HERS raters do, obviously they do HERS ratings, but many HERS raters and rating field inspectors are actually just as involved on the code compliance side.
I bet.
So there's probably in the neighborhood of about 30 states that require some type of blower door or a duct leakage test.
Yep.
And so that HERS raters are often who are called to do that testing. So in addition to doing HERS ratings, many of them are also involved in doing that testing for code compliance.
I kind of wondered about that because we were having that discussion about blower door testing, and who does the blower door testing? Is that an HVAC contractor that is wanting to extend their capabilities? Is that a technician that is looking for a new opportunity in the industry? Is that a green collar technician, which is something we're going to be spending a little bit of time diving into, over these next few months, is because we've seen a transition in a lot of our younger technicians that are becoming very much green aware, right? We're boots on the ground workers, but we're not just interested in looking at a system to tune it and see if it's performing well, that they're very interested in the impact that they have on bringing awareness to green initiatives, to bringing a green understanding to the work that we do. So we have younger technicians that are that have been raised on technology to begin with, which really helps, that are looking at alternative jobs. So we have the opportunity for our educators to start teaching things like energy performance and home auditing and understanding the building envelope at a much deeper level. So
can I back you up on something?
Oh yeah, please do.
Okay, all right. Put it in reverse.
Yeah.
So the HVAC contractor doing blower door tests,
yeah,
that's to get a better load calculation.
That's it.
That's one of the big things. Yeah. And it isn't just nice to do. It really produces a better result overall, because it could also point at, you might just have such a such a house with so much infiltration, so leaky, that it's going to be difficult to be happy in that house. Absolutely. Unless you address that too. So again, contain that expensive air. So I would say the forward-thinking HVAC contractors are doing blower door tests so they can do a good load calc, or maybe go back and recommend shell work before they do the HVAC system so they have a satisfied customer.
That is right in line with Jason Objut and I have been really discussing this, and I think he's going to be working on building out a new tree for the HVAC industry.
I just got 5 points from Jason.
You did, because this is
I don't know
such
what
an
these
important
points are for.
Because this is so much why we do this. I try, that I don't know if you've ever seen that one thumbnail. It's me, like the bell ringer of the apocalypse out here in the industry, right? And it's because it's the truth. Yeah. We are not the same industry that we were 10 years ago. We're absolutely not the same industry that we were 30 years ago. And the HVAC industry is a tree that has many evolving parts that are continuing to grow and sprouting new branches. But we are all a part of this entire tree of our envelope of a home.
And just to add to that, I'm working with this company, Duckling, which is to help contractors get homeowners on the path to electrification if they want to.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's really an interesting thing. It's a brand new startup project. I'm a strategic advisor for them. Getduckling.com is the website.
Nice.
One thing we've identified, we did a survey actually of 100 HVAC contractors to see their reaction to the phrase electrification.
Yeah.
And there's so many of them that came back with awareness and requests from customers. And
that's what's growing.
Yeah, we did 30-minute interviews, 900 minutes. See, that's where I find it easy to talk. But we found out like some of the key pain points are really this consumer education, it's planning the projects for the consumers, and access to financing and rebates. Some of the things, the confusion we're trying to dispel here. Final point is here, I think the HVAC contractor is the best position to address customers' needs going forward. Amen. For energy and electrification of homes, because they deal with the most complexity from the get-go.
Yeah.
So they deal with electrical, they deal with construction, they deal with plumbing, they deal with piping, they deal with refrigerant. They should deal with the envelope. Yeah. So, I mean, HVAC contractors, if talking about the tree, Jason, can I get another 5 points? Maybe.
And what do we redeem these for? Yeah. What's the prizes?
All right, I'm off my soapbox, actually.
No, I want you on the soapbox. That's why we do this, Bill. If it wasn't for opportunities like this, what would we be doing?
Yeah.
Not enjoying ourselves. When we're talking about this education for consumers and for our contractors, we have a change in our industry that is growing faster than most of us want to. There are changes that are required for us to preserve life on our planet for our next generations. And a lot of it comes on us because there is a lot of energy wasted in the building sciences, in the HVAC and refrigeration industries. So along with the things like the blower door testing and HERS ratings of homes, we have new products coming to market that's going to take intelligent individuals that are very skilled in basic sciences to be able to install and service these products with an understanding of installation and commissioning that is different than many of us grew up on. We have one in the next couple of weeks. We're going to have 2 different sessions talking about heat pump water heaters that are coming to the market. That's another incentive that's going to be promoted by the IRA. There's significant funds coming forward for heat pump water heaters. Who installs those?
Yeah.
Who works on those?
Here's a little data bit for Bill. I know he likes data. So 50% of all homes that achieved a 0 or less had a heat pump water heater.
Absolutely, they do.
0 HERS score.
0 HERS score. Yeah,
that's
HERS score of
exactly
0
right.
or less. Yeah, half of them had a heat pump water heater.
I'm about to validate this because I was on a conversation last week about incentives that are coming through that our suppliers of heat pump water heaters are taking advantage of already, that are applying incentives digitally for the purchase of heat pump water heaters, and our contractors are walking out the door with heat pump water heaters that are almost free. Wow. For the actual equipment, right? That's not covering installations, and there's still some upfront cost, and it's not a complete reimbursement, but enough of an incentive to make you look at a traditional water heater and go, at least this year, that's not even worth looking at. Now, maybe I've got additional installation cost, and there's going to be, there's a variety of things that we have to look at.
Or something, yeah.
Exactly, which is another incentive through the IRA. Right. So we've already got funds coming through the IRA for electrical panel inspections and upgrades. So we have the capability of moving into all of these avenues. And the HVAC industry, it really is sitting on our shoulders to understand this. Are we electricians? Some of us are. Do we need to be aware of electrical panels and capabilities of electrical panels if we're looking at replacing a water heater with a heat pump water heater? Yeah, there's a lot of those things that are new branches for our tree and new opportunities for all of us. So yeah, just hop on this soapbox anytime you want to, because I am known for the rabbit holes. I usually have to be drawn back out.
Back in 2018, I replaced an oil-fired water heater at my house with a heat pump water heater. Nice. Got a $750 rebate from my electric utility, covered more than half the cost of it. Yeah. And I was able to, I did pay an electrician to run a circuit, but I was able to do the install myself and still get the rebate. So
exactly. So a lot of incentives, both locally and soon to be federally, for these opportunities. And that's why we're here. We're just here to teach about the opportunities and why we want to expand our horizons. Why, Jason, you're so right on it. Why we want to leave this industry better than we found it. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to educate on opportunities. Yep. A lot of good stuff. There's probably a lot of people out there go, man, these guys ever going to stop talking so we can ask some questions? I love it, though. This is the reason we do what we do. If there's anybody out there that has any questions for Ryan and for Bill, and even just to let us know where you're chiming in from, just say hello and what part of the country, what part of the world, and we'll give it a couple minutes to see if anybody has any thoughts or any further questions while we have some really brilliant minds with us today.
I wanted to pick up on a thread we started before we started the live stream. We were talking about sort of the delay between the passage of the bill and the actual money coming to the states. And I attended a seminar or a webinar today sponsored by Building Performance Association and a representative from the Endil Group gave a really succinct summary about how the DOE is actually asking for public comments on what to do with the money.
Sure.
So really, they want to make sure it hits the ground and becomes
available,
active in a proper way. And then they'll get back out to the states, and then the states have to actually apply with a plan. And the states have a deadline on the plan. If they don't apply within 2 years, the money goes back to another pool. So there's some responsibility by different parties being placed in the system to get this money out and rolling. And I believe, and generally speaking, it's about a 10-year time frame. So you don't have to worry about it expiring in 2024, but it might really not hit the streets till later this year or early next year.
And that was one of the concerns that came in when we were talking about some of these incentives when we're with PNNL is, when are they going to be deployed? Well, we are being asked when it needs to be deployed. And so there is input, and that will be on energy.gov. And we'll see all the resources on energy.gov, plus other follow-ups on some of these heat pump water heaters that we've been talking about. Now we got some good questions coming in. Yes, is there going to be recordings of this? Absolutely, in a variety of different places. Bill, you want to tell about the website? So this is simulcasting right now through 10 different social media platforms.
Yep.
So LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, a variety from both of us. So where will they find this, Bill?
On the TrueTech YouTube channel, the TrueTech Facebook page, and then my personal LinkedIn profile.
Awesome. Fantastic. So you can also go over to LinkedIn to ESCO. No, not on this time. It'll be an HVAC Excellence this time. You can go to YouTube for ESCO Institute, Facebook for ESCO Institute. I think this is actually going out on Twitter as well. So we got a few different links on that, all available to come back and take a look at. And just good resources. We've got quite a few people chiming in from a variety of places. Thanks for joining us all.
We got one question on the opinion on ventilating dehumidifiers for humid climates in the South and how they help with the HERS rating. I think in some cases, designed properly, ventilating dehumidifiers are very important.
Yep.
Because you do have to control that inlet air, the humidity content of the inlet air. In terms of the HERS rating, I'm not sure how that plays in.
Yeah, I've looked at how a lot of different technologies impact the HERS rating, and that is not one of them.
So
I'm not sure, actually.
No.
Yeah, I'm not sure what impact that has.
So that's a technology that's evolved.
Yeah, and really what you're trying to do is maintain the environment for the occupants, and also in some sense for the durability of the structure. I want to jump to Keith from Rochester. What was the name of the heat pump that you mentioned earlier? I think he was talking about the heat pump ventilating system I had. So that was called CERV2, CERV number 2, and it's Build Equinox, EQUINOX.com. That's the manufacturer in Illinois. It's actually made in a solar powered facility. Ain't that cool?
Oh, nice. Fantastic. Good questions come through. Great answer for that as well. And a lot of people are asking about, like hot heat pump water heaters, and are there very many out there? Are we having success stories with them? And we are having a lot of success with heat pump water heaters. We're actually going to have NEEA on here in the near future, talk about the utilization and research that has been validated for heat pump water heaters across the entire globe, and markets that have really flourished with energy reductions, as much as 27% energy reductions just based on hot water or heat pump hot water heaters on the grid alone. So a lot of those that are going to be in our future in the near times.
I wanted to address one of the questions here about what can PEX water heater and plumbing fixture manufacturers do to help builders with HERS ratings or HERS H2O ratings. He brought up HERS H2O.
Yeah.
Which is really, it's the water efficiency utilization on site for a structure. And Ryan's talked about that a lot before. But I would say, just to relate a personal example.
Yes.
I wanted to have minimal size water runs because I wanted to minimize the amount of clearing charge.
Sure.
Which is when you run hot water that you have to clear out before the hot water runs.
Wasted energy in water.
Plumbers wouldn't do it.
Really?
And the factory wouldn't put in the size piping I wanted, even though it's allowed in the code. So there's a lot of traditions that need to be broken.
Oh my gosh!
When you examine things, and you really have to do a lot of arm wrestling sometimes.
Yeah.
And we have a heat pump water here. We actually have a heat pump clothes dryer too. Not a condensing clothes dryer, but a heat pump clothes dryer. So I have 6 heat pumps in this house.
Nice.
They do require 10 tending, filtration,
space considerations.
filters,
Yeah, absolutely.
those kind of things. But it just, to me, makes so much sense to move thermal energy from one place to another rather than create it on site.
We are so wasteful with energy. I look at this home, and this is a 3.5-year-old home. It's about 3,100 square foot above grade. It's 70,000 BTU condensing furnace that doesn't run maybe 40% of the times. There are things that were done well. And then I have a unblanketed hot water heater that was in an unconditioned garage with about 40 feet of pipe to the master bathroom. I waste 4 to 6 minutes of water, because it is low consumption heads, but I waste 4 to 6 minutes of water every time to shower before the water can get warm enough to utilize. So think about the water waste, think about the heat waste, think about the additional heat radiated in the ceiling that is just wasted energy in our space. And that is the thing that most consumers are not fully aware of yet. And I hope that efforts like this start improving people's perspective of how we can improve the efficiency of our structures. There are a lot of things we can do.
Yeah, and that goes back to the question that Bill had brought up about, what can water heater, plumbing fixture manufacturers, PEX manufacturers do, and that reducing that quantity of water is going to have an impact on your HERS H2O score. We haven't got into that, but HERS H2O is just it does for water what HERS does for energy. But reducing that distance or using a smaller diameter pipe there is going to improve your HERS score and improve your HERS H2O score.
Or use home runs back to a manifold. That's the other thing.
Yeah, that's the
instead
other
of
option.
doing loops.
Right.
Instead of looping it. Yep.
Yeah.
Man, I see another show.
Yeah.
HERS H2O. We're going to have to get this one in
HERS
schedule. I mean, we already got asking questions. So, it's a huge waste of energy. And we have opportunities, inexpensive opportunities. We're not like we have to spend an extra $1,000 to make a home more efficient on water usage. It's pretty simple. It's a matter of looking at a floor plan going, where is the best place for this? Not where is the most convenient to install it. Where is the best place for doing my installations of equipment?
There's actually a guy named Gary Klein in California who does a lot of work in terms of energy efficiency in buildings and structures. And he'll take like the floor plan when you're building something and then draw the cold water and the hot water path and do as much as he can
to reduce,
especially floor over floor, to make them coincident to minimize the run. So again, in our case, we had new construction. We had a chance to do the planning and to align the rooms. In existing construction, not so easy.
No. Not at all. Yep. Gentlemen, this is really good stuff. This is the things that our industry needs to hear. Respected sources speaking the truth. And this is why I like this. Thank you so much for being here. One last opportunity for anybody to ask any questions. How about some follow-up contact information? If anyone would like to learn more about the HERS rating system, Ryan, what's the best way to get educated on that?
Yeah, so we have a consumer-facing website called HERSindex.com. That's kind of a very basic level, homeowner-friendly website. And then we have our professional website, which is resnet.us, which is another great way to dive into a little bit more detail about how the system works and our standards and things like that. And then you can always email me, ryan@resnet.us.
All right. Good stuff. Well, gentlemen, I think we're going to wrap it up. That's just under an hour. That's an hour of education that is worth the time. So we appreciate you being here. And we'll catch you the next time on Did You Know, the ESCO HVAC show. And we dive into ResNet H2O. See you guys.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you for joining Did You Know, the ESCO HVAC show, brought to you by the ESCO Institute and HVAC Excellence. Our mission is to bring the top educators of the industry here for you in a live, unique experience so that you can join us from multiple social platforms, all with the opportunity to ask questions, to be involved, and to learn about the things that are changing in our industry as they are changing. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notifications when we go live every week. Are you an educator looking for resources to be the best that you can be? Man, you're in the right place. And we invite you to come join us at the National HVACR Education Conference, where we bring all of these guests and many more, along with manufacturers and different organizations of the trade, so that we can all be in one place at one time and gather this information to make us better together. How do you learn more? Go to escogroup.org, select HVAC Excellence, and then the conference. I look forward to seeing you again next week on Did You Know? The ESCO HVAC Show.